The glider we know today has become part of Belfast's very fabric, just as much as Citybus was in the 1990s. But the glider has a very interesting reputation, with it being a fast, reliable and comfortable service to use, whilst at the same time it has been involved in over 250 collisions since its launch in 2018, some of which resulted in a number of injuries. On top of that, the glider has also shown to be a hub of antisocial behaviour, with multiple videos being shared online showing people being physically and verbally abused for reasons A to Z. At its core, the glider is better than your bog standard metro service, but it falls short in being able to achieve what a tram can do. But how did we get here, and what sequence of events led us to being stuck with a bus rapid transit service instead of light rail? And that is the question that we will be answering here today on FundTheNINE. Following the Industrial Revolution that had just came to a close in the 1840s, Belfast had rose from a nondescript little harbour town, about the size of Crumlin today, into a city that was an industrial powerhouse. So much so that it had surpassed Carrickfergus as being Ulster's busiest port for importing and exporting goods, essentially becoming a new capital for Ulster. This new industrial city of Ireland was creating new jobs every week, boasting the largest rope works, shipyard and tobacco factory in the world towards the end of the late 19th century. All of this industrial growth was supported by one major development. Belfast was growing in size rapidly and its population was getting to a point where people were starting to build their homes much further away from their jobs, as there was now no room left for development in the city centre. As most people are aware, the main mode of local transportation in the 1870s was either walking or on horseback. This presented a major issue for everyone in Belfast, as it meant the majority of people commuting into the industrial hub to get to work would do so via horse, which, just like today in our car-centric towns and cities, presented the issue of congestion and traffic jams. Because yes, horses are too also capable of gridlock. Plus, with the added issue that horses are animals, they defecate, and having a large amount of feces littering the streets every day is a major issue. Not just from the smell, but it also poses serious health risks to the general population via direct contact or rodent infestations. To combat this, a company by the name of Belfast Street Tramways opened the first tram lines in Belfast on the 28th of August 1872. These lines were initially serving some of Belfast's busiest streets, such as York Street, Corporation Street, Castle Place and Great Victoria Street, among many others. The first trams in Belfast were horse-drawn, meaning that by just using one or two horses, you could pull about the same amount of people an Ulsterbus town service can today. But after 33 years, the decision was made to electrify the entire Belfast tramway network, eliminating the need for horses on the streets even further. However, before the decision to electrify the tram network in 1877, steam trams were trialled and proved successful, having passed the requirement that they produce no smoke and do not frighten horses. Despite that, however, official permission to operate steam tram services never came, and thus the electric tram system was adopted instead. After the electrification of the Belfast tramways in 1905, they became a vast, sprawling network of public transportation that reached an impressive 55 miles of fully electrified tracks all throughout the city. However, there was a new threat looming at the start of the 20th century. The tram was starting to suffer from the same problem that tramways all over the world were killed off for during the 1900s. Traffic. Congestion has never been a stranger to Belfast, but during the 1930s, car ownership in Northern Ireland was starting to increase dramatically, and this led to the trams getting bogged down in a sea of motor vehicles all day long. And since there were no tramway prioritisation laws to keep the rails free of cars, these issues continued to get worse and worse. And God forbid if there was an accident on the tram tracks themselves. The so-called solution to this issue was another technology that is now long forgotten in our country: trolleybuses. Trolleybuses were seen as the next step in public transportation, as they weren't confined to the rails and could drive around obstacles and other cars on the road, so long as it stayed within the confines of the trolley pole. In 1938, the Belfast Corporation converted the Falls Road tram line into a trolleybus line. After a testing period, the Belfast Corporation then deemed it a successful venture, and in 1939 they made the decision to eliminate the Belfast tram network. Through the 1940s, trolleybuses were continually introduced, slowly but surely phasing out the tram system. By 1954, every tram in Belfast had been axed. However, due to a change of policy, the last trams were replaced by diesel buses instead of trolleybuses. The trolleybus network of Belfast quickly became the new staple of the city, with many promotional artwork and photographs from the time featuring the striking red buses. In 1958, the Belfast Corporation were planning on replacing their 1938 model trolleybuses with some new Sunbeam models, but shortly after taking delivery of the first prototype, they closed a section of the trolleybus network. This closure would signal the start of a 10-year decline of the trolleybus network in Belfast, and on the 12th of May 1968, the last trolleybus line was closed, with diesel buses then taking over all of the closed routes. A year prior to the trolleybus's demise, the Ulster Transport Authority had been dissolved, with Ulsterbus and Northern Ireland Railways taking their place. In 1973, the newly founded Citybus took over bus operations in Belfast, and for the next 30 plus years they kept Belfast moving despite the constant risk of their drivers being injured or killed by paramilitary attacks, or their buses being hijacked and used as burning barricades or VBIEDs, all of which happened on many an occasion, with Ulsterbus and Citybus combined having 17 employees lose their lives during the conflict and over 1,400 buses destroyed. Despite this, Citybus and Ulsterbus managed to run a tight ship, mostly thanks to Werner Heubeck. He was a former Luftwaffe conscript during the Second World War. Thanks to Werner's efforts, he managed to make Northern Ireland's buses profitable and ran them to schedule despite the security situation imposed by the conflict during the Troubles. Werner is also credited as being the boss who took bombs off of buses, as thanks to his wartime experience, he was a fearless leader of the company and would often climb aboard hijacked buses himself and remove viable devices before they could detonate and kill or maim innocent bystanders. Werner's actions would later see him awarded both an OBE in 1977 and a CBE in 1988 when he retired from his position with the company. If you would like to learn more about Werner Heubeck, there will be a link in the description of this video to a Belfast Telegraph article from 2009 that goes into great detail about the astounding life lived by this brilliant man. Since Werner's retirement in 1988, Ulsterbus and Citybus has seen executives come and go, but after the creation of Translink in 1986, public transport was starting to undergo a modern rebrand. With Translink firmly at the helm, they started to quickly phase out the ancient fleet of high-floor buses for more modern, Wrightbus-bodied low-floor buses, a technology that Wrightbus themselves pioneered. They also started to replace Northern Ireland Railway's ageing fleet of trains with new, Spanish-built DMUs. After a period of discussion, Translink then made the decision to rebrand Citybus to Metro on the 7th of February 2005. The first new pink Metro buses rolled out onto Belfast's congested streets, and with that, the very staple of Belfast that Citybus became over the course of 30 years had come to an end. In the years that followed, all the buses still draped in the old Citybus livery were even given a new dress or scrapped. Since Metro's conception, it has become the best urban bus network in Northern Ireland for coverage, fair prices and frequency. However, due to the insane levels of motor car congestion in the city, reliability has often suffered as the city's population grows thanks to inadequate prioritisation of buses and poor bus lane laws that are not properly enforced. But that is a topic for the next video when we discuss the glider's conception and where the future of public transport in Belfast could take us. Thank you for watching and stick around.